This week on Gymwright Live, we welcome back to the show Alec Littlejohn of Untapped Revenue for a more advanced lesson on Facebook ads to help you take your lead generation game to the next level. Now, for all of you listening to this via audio-only podcast, be sure to head over to facebook.com/Gymwright to check out the video version of this interview. Now, if you are watching the show on Facebook right now and you do not see the little red light in the top corner of the screen, then you're watching the replay, which is still awesome. But what I want you to do is type the word join in the comments below so you can also get access to the network. This is our free private Facebook group for the motivated gym owners of the world, where you will find tons of great conversations, interviews, and step-by-step how-tos of some of the most effective strategies out there for gym owners today. By the way, this also gets you our free 2019 Gym Sales and Marketing Planner. And if you hurry, you can also be a part of our interactive gym marketing exercise that's just getting started. Plus, it'll also set you up to receive a weekly reminder of whenever we go live for this show so you never miss an episode. Again, just type the word join now so you can get access to all this great stuff so you can start taking your gym owner game to the next level. All right, let's get this party started. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Gymwright Live. I am your host, Marcus Gurzy, and this week we welcome back to the show special guest Alec Littlejohn. Absolute pleasure to have you back on today. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Now, we're having you back on because the show we did with you a few months back was a huge hit. Lots of questions, lots of people I know were interested in what you do, and the show just went so good that we said, okay, well, we kind of started with some fundamentals, if you will, around Facebook ads, and let's bring Alec back on and let's go a degree deeper, if we will. Right? So excited to have you on and excited to dig in here. So now, before we go too much further here and kind of dig into this stuff, you know, for those listening who didn't catch that episode, you know, by the way, if you didn't, go check it out. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you guys do at Untapped Revenue?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of what we do, so our main goal is honestly member predictability and consistency, right? Because we've noticed that a lot of issues that gym owners are facing is just getting people in the door, right? And things in the market right now, with things constantly changing, right? Facebook is always adapting and changing. And it's been kind of a method of gym owners for getting people in the door for so long, right? But as things change, it's slowly becoming more difficult to actually take advantage of these things. So with what we do at Untapped Revenue, is our main focus is creating this automation and consistency and predictability and generating members, right? It's not just about getting leads, right? Because leads mean absolutely nothing to your business unless they're actually converting into members and creating some sort of revenue for your business. So at Untapped Revenue, our main goal is to help out with the lead to member kind of process, getting leads, getting them in the door, and closing them into members. So that's how we do things at Untapped Revenue.
Awesome. Now, today I understand that you're going to be going over some more advanced concepts than we discussed during our last show. But before we get into that, let's talk about Facebook ads in general. You know, why is it so important for owners to understand how they work and what it can do for their business?
Yeah, honestly, great question. And the thing that I always think about with Facebook ads is I always kind of tie it back to the old way of advertising, because back in the day, it was always about kind of you put out a sign and you hope that the right people are driving by, right? And in that kind of advertising, it was more hopeful advertising, right? It was like, we're hoping that the right person who's looking to get fit and who might be a good fit for our facilities are going to drive by, see the sign, and then end up coming into the door, right? With Facebook ads, it kind of takes things to another level. Because with your olden day kind of advertising, I guess, there was no real tracking, right? Like if you put a sign out on the road, you couldn't put two signs beside each other and then at the end of the day go, oh, this sign produced better results than this.
Right. Can't really split.
You can't
split
really
test.
Yeah. So I feel that Facebook ads opens up limitless possibilities because of its new technology advancements, right? With this algorithm, it's literally taking information of the behaviors of people on Facebook and on other platforms, actually, so on landing pages and on all these different areas online, and using that information to find people that are going to suit what you're looking for best. And it's this optimization that really helps Facebook, right? And not to mention just Facebook, but Facebook and Instagram are kind of tied together. So it also includes like why Facebook's important is because not only are you able to use it, like use Facebook ads for Facebook, you're also able to use it for Instagram. And it's kind of the same, I guess, platform in terms of how you advertise. But obviously there's some differences there. But the other thing just to mention is how do we compare Facebook ads to other forms of online advertising? Right? So let's say Google, for example. Now, the reason I'm so honed in on Facebook for fitness owners is because with Google ads, yes, they do work. And typically with Google ads, you're getting actually warmer traffic because it's somebody who's sitting on Google going, I'm looking for CrossFit, or I'm looking for losing weight, something along those lines. So you get warm traffic, but the costs on Google are so high that it's almost not worth it in a lot of cases. And unless you have a website that's converting at over 3% or so, which a lot of people don't have, then it's not even worth it putting out a Google ad because you're not going to convert enough people, right? So I think right now with Facebook and Instagram in some cases, that it's just this gold mine that we can still take advantage of regardless of the cost kind of creeping up right now. If you know what you're doing. And that's why I think what we're going to be talking about today is going to be really crucial and important, because these foundational things are what's making the difference in a successful campaign and a non-successful campaign.
100%, man. It's, a lot of people, I think, as Facebook's been around, or Facebook advertising's been around quite some time. And, over the last couple of years, as Facebook has made it easier and easier for people to be able to at least take their own crack at it. And, between video tutorials and just, templates and some kind of like general knowledge that's been floating around, I think overall has gone up. People have been able to experiment more and more on their own. And although that's a good thing for, people kind of taking control of that and being able to take control of their lead gen a little bit more proactively, it's created a lot of noise, and it's caused the cost to go up. It's causing a lot of people to kind of ignore or even kind of like poo-poo Facebook ads sometimes when it comes to lead gen for gyms. And really what it comes down to is just do them right? It's just it's not that they don't work or that it's not worth it. It's absolutely worth it if you can do it right. And if you can do so, I mean, we still see gyms regularly who are, they can double their business, triple their business simply by getting their ads and their advertising under control. Versus other gyms where if it's not done correctly, you can burn many, many thousands of dollars on, something that, yields next to nothing, which for the record, even when you do know what you're doing, that can still happen. There is no perfect score. Even for those of us who've been doing this for a long time, when you're testing in a new market or you're testing a new campaign and new content, sometimes it doesn't work the first time, the third time, the fifth time, and you have to kind of just tweak and tune and be able to wait it out and have someone who can guide you so that you can actually figure it out, because the formula, it's in there somewhere. And I think some of these concepts we're going to get into today are going to, I think, shed some light on those things for people.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Okay. So let's get into this thing. So the first item on the agenda is the pixel. Now, can you explain what the heck it is and how it works and really why it's so critical for the success of your ads?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of, obviously, one of the biggest components of why Facebook is so good is because it can get us really qualified leads if we're optimizing properly. So the purpose of the pixel is to essentially allow us Facebook as much data as it needs to really help us find our high quality leads that we're looking for. So why is it so important? So to answer that, I guess the best thing is just to say that if you put that pixel on your website, it's going to give you 180 days worth of data in the past of who has been on your website. Now, if you think about that, that's 180 days worth of data of people who have taken an interest somewhat in your business by going to your website. Now, if you think about that, that's pretty powerful to be able to get that kind of data, right? It's like you're literally telling Facebook, okay, these are the people who have essentially visited my website. So what we're able to do when we utilize this pixel and we get it in the proper spots, then we can essentially find the people who are most likely going to essentially trigger the pixel. I think of it honestly like a little security camera where it sits on your website, and anybody who comes through, you're recording that, right? Mm-hmm. But then that security camera sends that information back to the headquarters, which is essentially where you're running your ad. So when I put out an ad and my pixel's running, let's say, I guess my home base is now utilizing that data to help my campaigns essentially, or to help me know what's going on, or to help me find what I'm looking for. So it gives us this ability to essentially optimize for things. Now, I don't want to get super, super complex, but there's different levels of the pixel. And by that, I simply mean most of us have a pixel installed on our website. If you don't, I urge you, get one on your website, install it in the header section. But there's other little bits of coding that go hand in hand with the pixel. So we have, let's say, the main security camera, the main pixel on the website. But we can actually take little snippets of individual code, which is called custom conversion events. And I don't want to get too complex because this is getting there. But essentially what it is it's their I guess I would say they're their own security cameras put on specific pages, and they can track just that one individual page, right? So what ends up happening is we're able to track on specific pages on either our website or on our funnels. So then the reason I bring this up and why the pixel is so powerful is because now that we can essentially differentiate where people are on our website, on our funnels, we can take that information and optimize for a specific event, which means that, let's say I want to collect people's information. So I want to collect leads. So we can put that little bit of code on the page after we've collected their information, right? So then that means that if somebody gives us their information, they get to that next page, that security camera, that custom event triggers and tells Facebook, this person just became a lead, okay? Now what we can do is we can optimize for that event to happen more, right? So we can tell Facebook in our campaigns, I want this to happen. This is what my objective is. Now run with it. So then the algorithm takes that and starts to use it to our advantage. Now we're trying to find people who are actually going to give us their information, right? So it's really, really powerful to utilize the pixel. So that's really why it's so important. And it also really helps find the audience that's going to really resonate with your stuff. One of the things I always see is people are putting out ads without these pixels in place, and their relevance is really, really bad. And the problem with having a bad relevance is if you've had a bad relevance for a lot, let's say for 9 months you've been running ads, and your relevance score, which by the way you can find on, it has to be found in Business Manager. On the ad section in our last conversation on the podcast, somebody asked about that in the comments, and I put a video there to show you how to find that relevance score. And if you have a relevance score that's been, let's say, below 5 for the past 9 months, your ad account can actually get flagged by Facebook, which means Facebook is insinuating your ad account gives out bad ads, right? It's people don't like your ads, which what ends up happening is if Facebook thinks you don't, like, let's say, push good content, is you get bad traffic, you get higher costs because they are now associating your ad account with just these crummy ads. So when you have these pixels in place, it helps to essentially tell Facebook the people you're looking for, which means then your ads are going to these people, which is more relevant to them, so that increases their relevance score. Does that make sense, kind of what I'm getting at there?
Sure.
So the importance of that is it's so important to have your pixel in place. And also just with that relevance, just to kind of tie everything back into a whole here is, having an organic strategy as well to improve your relevance is going to be important as well. But yeah, so honestly, that Facebook pixel optimizing and helping with your relevancy, improving your lead quality, it does so much, and it sounds a lot more complicated than it is, but honestly, it's very powerful when you get into the details of it.
Sure. So at very least, install the basic Facebook tracking pixel on your website, so that you can at least increase your relevancy score, which is going to allow for better performing ads, lower costs, and so on. And now, and the longer that that's there, from my understanding, is that is now going to learn, right? The algorithm is going to learn. It's going to start to, it gets wiser and wiser over time, right? Because it starts to have not just the data from those 180 days, but then as you continue to roll out initiatives with different campaigns, it's going to start to kind of evolve, right?
Exactly. And then that's when it really gets powerful, that if it's been running for a long period of time and collecting that proper data, then you're really optimizing well, and it's going to start sending your ads to the right people more often.
Love it. Okay. So once we've got that pixel installed and we're starting to work on that relevancy score, the next item we're going to talk about is really kind of, I think, one of the most underutilized tools in Facebook ads, and that's offline event tracking. Would you tell us a little bit about why this is so important and how gym owners can use it to optimize their ads?
Yeah, so it's honestly very simple to use, and I don't know why people don't utilize this. I think it's just a lack of education in terms of what it actually does. So what offline event tracking is, it's kind of like a pixel in a way, but everybody should have this running right now actually. So if you have an ad account and you've been running ads, then you'll have offline event tracking. That's a default one that's running in the background of all your ads. The problem is people don't really know why it's running or what it's used for. So essentially the idea behind it is it's supposed to help optimize further. So how it does that is, now this has to be on us, right? So with offline event tracking, we're essentially taking all our new clients that came. Let's say we're running ads for a month. At the end of the month, we take our new clients, so people who have actually paid us now, okay? Mm-hmm. And we're going to take that list of people and upload it into this offline event tracking. So in the grand scheme of things, if we look at it from kind of an overview perspective, so we have a Facebook ad, okay? It's generating us leads. Let's say we get 100 leads. Out of those 100 leads, 10 become a client. Now Facebook, if we're running obviously this with a Facebook ad, Facebook's tracking all this. It's telling us here's the lead that came through, but it doesn't know who became clients afterwards, right? Mm-hmm. So what we can do with offline event tracking is we can take all the new leads and we can go, okay, out of these leads, these 10 people became our clients. Mm-hmm. We then take that list, upload it into the offline event set, and now Facebook knows that, okay, out of these 100 leads that came this past month, these were the 10 people that actually paid for our services or paid for your business's services, right? So now all of a sudden you're telling Facebook not only, okay, we want to optimize to find leads, but now you're telling Facebook, here are the actual people paying me. So what ends up happening is the more you use this, and you can just kind of get an idea of how important this is just thinking about it, like over time, if you keep uploading your clients, like people that are paying you money and telling Facebook, here's the people, that algorithm is now going to go, okay, here's like 50 people that became clients from running ads. Let me push more of these ads to people who look similar to them on the platform, mm-hmm. right? So it really just helps kind of ignite that optimization even more. And honestly, I have never seen anybody who I've talked to that's a gym owner that has used this. Like nobody I've talked to is using this right now, and I don't know why, but everybody should have that. The only thing I will say, and I've noticed this in the past, a lot of people are actually running ads on personal ad accounts. So they're not keeping the ads separate from their business account. So something I really, really recommend is if you're running ads from a personal account, make a business manager account and make an ad account specific to your business. Because if you're running a personal ad account, you cannot do offline event tracking. And if, let's say, if you're using a personal account and you have that personal account pixel on your website, well, Facebook's thinking this is a personal account pixel, right? So for you, not for your business. Right. So you need to separate the two. So if you're running ads on a personal account, make sure you switch over to a business account, or else you're not going to get a feature like this. So offline event tracking is only if you have like a business account and a business manager account. So make sure you do that. But yeah, honestly, offline event tracking, it's so powerful. And the last thing I want to mention about it, because it does get a little difficult to do, and I think this is one of the reasons why people don't use it, and the reason being is you need 3 things when you're uploading these contacts. So it's not as easy as just taking an email list and uploading it there. So you need their name, their email, their phone number, of course, but you also need the time of the event. So that's the tricky part. So the time the event occurred. So let's say you collected 100 leads. You need to know at what time those leads came in through your funnel. So there's a lot of softwares that you can utilize. If you're running a lead ad on Facebook, then it'll actually record all that for you. So you can literally just take the lead ad information and upload it into offline event set. But if you're like, let's say, driving traffic to your website or you're driving traffic to a funnel, then you actually need to record the time the event occurred to be able to utilize this feature. So I think that's where people get lost. And then I guess the last part that you need to make sure it actually works is you need to have a pixel installed, or else it can't track anything. So it won't work if you don't have a pixel. So that's also why the pixel is really important.
Got it. Okay. And the whole point of this thing is so that by figuring out how you do it. But once you are actually uploading to that offline event tracking, it educates the ad set or the algorithm that much more so around basically the demographic information, their patterns, their usage patterns. There are so many data points that Facebook tracks in building these audiences, excuse me. And that's the purpose of this, right? So it's about sharpening and refining the sniper scope, if you will, that much more so, right?
Yeah. Like the thing is, with costs getting higher and it getting more competitive, you need to find these little foundational things that are going to help you moving forward, because it's going to be about now doing things properly and having high relevance, having your pixel, using offline event tracking, giving Facebook as much data as possible. That's going to really make it a difference in your business to help you as you kind of progress here and as things change and that sort of stuff. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Awesome. Okay. Now, a common problem with running ads is that it's really hard to see where the issue might be if it's not performing well, right? There's the text copy, there's the creative, so the images or sometimes video, and then obviously the whole follow-up process. What is the best way to find the bottlenecks in your ad funnel if it's not performing well? Because you've seen this, you're in the network, you've seen how many people will post around like, I've tried ads, they don't work, or I spent all this money, it didn't work. How do you go about like figuring out where the problem is if that's you?
Yeah, great question. So this is all about looking at your numbers, and I think this is like a crucial importance in just business in general, right? Knowing your numbers in anything is important, because that's how we can optimize and improve things. So,
measurable, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? So in the case of finding bottlenecks in a campaign, it's really knowing your KPIs, so your key performance indicators. And in the lead gen world and in Facebook, our main ones are our cost per lead and our cost per acquisition, right? So how much is it costing us to get information, and how much is it costing us to get them paying us money, right? If we know those numbers and those numbers are good, great, then we're obviously going to keep putting money into the machine, because if we're making more, then we're going to keep feeding the money. However, if those KPIs are off, then where do we look to find the issues, right? So there's a couple key things that we look for when we're looking at our data in our campaigns, on our landing pages and things. And I think there's about 5 of them that I can name right now. So one is cost per click. So how much is it costing you to get somebody to click on the ad, right? So if I notice that my cost per click is above $1 to $2. So for our kind of standard numbers, we're looking for a cost per click of $1 to $2. If it's like way above that at $5 to $10, then the issue here is we're not getting people to click the ad. So what could be the problem in the ad? Well, it could be the image, the copy, or the headline, right? So if the cost per click is the problem, it's just I typically think of the cost per click as like related to the creative. If we're not getting people to stop and click, then it's probably the creative, because that's the biggest thing that people are seeing. So cost per click, if it's above $2, it's probably your creative, okay? And then what we want to look at is CTR, so click-through rate. So if they're clicking and continuing on throughout the funnel. So with that and cost per click are kind of hand in hand, right? If they're clicking on it, if they're clicking through it, it's pretty well telling people, or it's pretty well telling us, is our ad, image, copy, and headline catching people's attention enough to get them to click, right? So if your cost per click is not $1 to $2, if your click-through rate isn't 1%, if it's lower than 1%, then it's probably your creative and your copy. Okay.
And not to mention the offer, right? Like the offer may just not be appealing.
Exactly, right? So that's why when we're testing things, and in our last podcast we talked about this, right? It's like you need to test and isolate for variables to figure out what is the issue, right? If your cost per click starts decreasing after you changed an image, well, you're going to have an idea, right? So aside from those two, so cost per click and click-through rate, that's going to tell you about kind of the creative, the offer, the headline, that sort of stuff. Now there's other things like cost per 1,000 impressions. That to me tells me about competition. So if I'm paying a crap ton for 1,000 impressions, so if it's above, let's say, $30, okay, if my CPM is around $30 or so, I know that there's a lot of people competing for the audience, which might tell me that my problem might actually be I'm not spending enough, which is something where it's like, okay, if I'm having to compete, is it the relevance of my ads? And if your cost per click and your CTR are really bad, then it probably is. Or is it just it's such a saturated area and location that it's going to cost you too much money, right? So that's another one that you can look at. And then the last two is one, landing page conversion. So if somebody's reaching to your landing page, are they actually converting? And this is one of the issues I always find, because people are always trying to drive traffic to websites when websites convert at around 3 to 5%, which is a problem. Like our standard conversion rate on our landing pages needs to be 10% or higher. Otherwise, it's not going to make sense to run ads to that page. So looking at that and how we look at those numbers and those KPIs is we're looking at landing page views versus leads. So if we know that we have 10 leads, 10 landing page views, we know it's 100%, right? So just looking at those numbers to see, okay, if we have 100 people that make it to our landing page, are at least 10 or more converting? If they are, good stuff, okay? And then the last thing we look at is bounce rate. So bounce rate is link clicks versus landing page views. Because right now we're paying for clicks. Every time somebody's scrolling through Facebook, you click on an ad, somebody just paid for that click. So what ends up happening though is with the bounce rate is link clicks versus landing page. If I click and I don't make it to the landing page before I leave, then I know that I bounced is what would be called if I didn't make it to the landing page, but I clicked on the ad. Okay. So if your bounce rate is 30% or more, then you're going to have a problem, which means you're like 30% of your clicks aren't making it to your landing page, right? So on average, the numbers that we're looking for is 30% or below. So if it's below 30% your bounce rate, then you're okay. And to find that, it's just literally comparing link clicks versus landing page views. You want to make sure that 30% of people are bouncing. So you want to have the rest, obviously. So 70% of people are making it to your landing page, because otherwise you're going to have issues where your load time is too long. So people aren't waiting for your landing page to load. So they're just leaving. They're just not giving it the time of day. Or maybe you don't have a good enough hook on your landing page. So that, as well as landing page conversions, tells me if there's issues with more so the landing page. Right. So the last two, as I said, so landing page conversions and the bounce rate tells me about the landing page and the back end of the funnel. The cost per click, the CTR, and the CPM, so click-through rate and cost per 1,000 impressions, tell me about the Facebook ad, the creatives, and that sort of thing. Okay. And then when we look at kind of really back end metrics, we're obviously looking at show up rates and booking rates. If your show up rate is below 50%, and your booking rate's below 50%, then that's where we're getting into an area where things might be a problem in your follow-up. Okay. So if it's above 50% or at 50%, that's about average. So that tells me that things are pretty well okay. So those are really it in terms of the key performance indicators that I'm looking for in every campaign to see, okay, where's an issue? Can I isolate the issue? If I can isolate the problem, then we can fix it, right? If everything else makes sense, if all the other things are lining up, so if I have a good landing page conversion, my bounce rate is about 30%, my show up rate and my booking rate are 50%, but my cost per click is like $5, that is my problem. It's the ad and the copy and the headline and potentially the offer that I need to work around and test to figure out how to fix that.
Got it. Love it, man. That was really helpful. Now, question for you around, so let's say we get all that stuff optimized, right? We have an ad set that's working well, it's healthy, it's generating leads, and because I've heard this a lot from people all over where, they'll generate leads and they'll finally start getting some in, but then they'll say, oh, they were all just like crappy leads. I followed up with everyone, no one got back to me, or no one actually came in, and they feel like it's all for nothing. What are the common reasons that you've seen that might be the case?
So a lot of the time, and this isn't to, here's the thing, like time periods obviously vary. So like in January, you're going to get different kind of results. Like the leads might be higher quality than they would be if we're looking at kind of, a different time period, like maybe March or so. So it's like those time periods do really matter. So just because you ran a campaign in March and it didn't really do very well, doesn't mean if you ran one in 2 months from now, it won't do better. Right. So, in terms of kind of answering that, one of the biggest problems I see is that people are not persistent with follow-up, because one of the biggest things I can point out, and this is what I always stress to clients, is just that first 5 minutes a contact comes in is a crucial moment in time. If you can follow up with them in that first 5 minutes, your chances of success are over 82%. And that's among all industries, right? So just in sales in general, if you contact somebody who becomes a lead within 5 minutes, your chances of success are crazy. So after, let's say a lead comes in, but it's been an hour, right? Your chances of success don't really start to happen until the 8th to 15th contact. So people think like, oh, I don't want to annoy people, but I think it's sort of a mindset problem where people have to realize they gave you their information. They are really interested, right? So if they're not responding to you, then it's probably not a good time. It's probably something's going on, right? They're people like us, right? We have things going on all the time. We signed up. There was a need deep down, and that's why the person put their information in.
Right.
So what I think a big problem is that people get too caught up with, oh, I don't want to bother them, I don't want to follow up. But in reality, you're doing them a disservice if you don't follow up, because you know you can fix their problems. Like if you know your gym is really going to change their life, you need to follow up. You need to be persistent until they say, stop messaging me, right? Because
buy or die, in essence.
Yeah, exactly. We forget about the fact that we're really trying to help these people, and so we get scared. So I think one of the biggest problems with that is you give up too early, and then you forget about them. So a big thing is people are so focused on getting new leads. What about engaging old leads that you got 6 months ago? When was the last time people communicated with those leads? I bet you not very much of anybody has. Right. So it's re-engaging them as well, because at one point in time they were interested. So no matter if they're not responding now or not, they gave you their information, use it. It doesn't mean it's for nothing. Right. So I think follow-up is an issue. Of course, some leads are just bad quality leads, but that's why having pixels, having these foundational things improves the quality. So it all ties together. And that's why all these components need to be one for you to really do really good campaigns, right?
Yeah, that urgency to get someone to connect with someone, as quickly as possible when you're doing advertising, I think a lot of gym owners don't understand that, because most gym owners are so busy, they're so caught up in going from class to walk-in to member issue. It's a lot to deal with, and if you're also the one who is getting back to people for leads, it can be you're wasting money simply on the fact that it takes you, sometimes a few hours or half a day before you even have a chance to sit down and start, calling people and scheduling and so on. And I think that is a massive flaw in the system, and a misunderstanding I think that business owners have, in that they're like, oh, well, I paid for leads. Like I tried calling them twice. What are you talking about? Or, I even tried 4 or 5 times with this person. And it's like, well, when was that? Oh, it was the next day, or it was, later that day. And although in other cases with a regular lead who reached out to you and went through the whole process on their own, they are so much further down the track in the buyer's journey that you get a little bit more grace. Now, the same psychological factors are involved, where they had a problem, they sought you out, they submitted their information, they want your help in solving this problem in their life. Now, if they did this all on their own, again, they're at a different stage in their buyer's journey versus someone who was, cruising Facebook, saw an ad and was like, oh, that looks like a good idea. They click through. Now, they're going to be different, but the rule is the same. It's get back to them as quickly as possible. And it's just the time frames are different, right? An organic lead, yes, 5 minutes would be awesome, but you can still get away with, if it's that hour or within a couple of hours, that's still very good for an organic lead. And you are likely still able to access that pain point. They're still in that mindset enough, or it's still fresh enough to them to where they were able to, you're still able to connect on that why, move them forward so they can make a good buying decision based on that why, rather than where with an ad set, because they weren't actively already doing, the pain wasn't bubbled up as high, right? But the problem was there. It's just not as big. So there's more on you to control this and access that why faster with a faster response, which oftentimes when you have a gym that really does well with their ads, one of the key things is to actually have someone there who's ready and able to literally just pick up and call. Lead comes in, boom, you're on the phone, message, text message, email, follow up, and they are in a hot pipeline that is going to get, once or twice a day follow up for the next, 10 days straight, and basically just working the pipeline. If you are going to spend the money on advertising, or this is a make or break situation for yourself, get a friend, get an intern, get a spouse, get someone to help you out with this so that you can actually make the most of those leads. Because I've had lots of conversations with people who spend a lot of money on ads and were really disappointed because they're like, I spent all this money and I didn't get anything from it. And I know for a fact that their follow-up process was not as good as it needed to be. But what do you say to someone who spent, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 on advertising and they're like, this is BS. It didn't work at all. And it's like, you got leads and you were following up, but I also know that you're a one-man show, or I know that the person who's doing your follow-up is coaching 4 or 5 classes in a row and doesn't get back to them until oftentimes the next day. It's like, that is the problem. It's not the ads, right? And oftentimes, again, this is just a lack of education and I think understanding of how the game works. If you're trying to play this new game of advertising, you have to understand how to win that game in order to do so, right? Otherwise, you're going to be really frustrated trying to win a game of Monopoly with checkers rules, right? It's not going to work, and you're going to be slamming your head against the wall. So I encourage you, if you're watching this and you're thinking like, okay, like, yeah, that was me. Like, you got to be really honest with yourself. Like, how quickly were you really getting back, and how persistent were you on those? Now, sometimes you do get, like you said, there are different grades of leads that you're going to get. And then again, that also comes back to then, okay, well then let's revisit creative. Let's revisit the offer itself and being able to split test and work through that. In some markets, it's a lot easier than other markets, right? Because some markets you have a smaller town, or you have, or whatever the reason, you have to be willing to experiment with it until you figure it out. Otherwise, you are probably just giving up too soon. And I understand that for many, they don't have the kind of budget to be able to afford like 6 months worth of figuring this out, to where they're like, hey, look, like I'm going to be okay with spending a couple grand a month for the next 4 or 5 months before I like start to recoup and it really starts to flow. I get it, because advertising it costs a lot, right? If you don't have a somewhat of a return happening, right? So there is a little bit to that in regards to your cash flow and your flexibility. So, I think you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt, knowing that, okay, like it's not going to work for everyone as quickly as it does for others, right? And you may be in one of those markets, or you may be in one of those positions where you don't have the staffing resources to be able to get back to people. Really think about all of those things and try to have your ducks in a row as much as possible so that you can make the most of every penny that you are spending at very least. And yeah, that's what I would add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice. Love that.
All right. So now the thing that always comes up whenever we talk about advertising is, people want to see examples of ads that are actually working well either now or in the recent past, so they can just swipe them and use them themselves to help them get started. Because I think a lot of people get stuck on the creative, what kind of image, what kind of copy, and so on. So do you have, and you mentioned that you are willing to put something together here, but would you be willing to share something with our audience that could be like a swipe file or something cool like that they can grab?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely some visual representations definitely help for sure. So what I'm going to do is I'll definitely create some type of folder where I'll actually just pull in some of our best performing advertisements, so you can start to see and get an idea of what they look like, how the copy is, what type of elements we have, and kind of tie what we've been talking about together into kind of a visual representation for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. That would be huge. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. Anything else you want to add to the 3 points we covered?
So honestly, I think the big thing is just honestly make sure you get off your personal ad account, get onto an actual business account, separate those two things. To make sure that you can start utilizing the offline event tracking and the pixel and that sort of stuff. But other than that, I mean, I think we covered things at a very kind of in-depth level today. So I think I'll just leave it at what I said today. And I think, Yeah.
Awesome. All right, final question I like to ask every guest that we have on here. In one sentence, if you could give one piece of advice to a gym owner, what would it be?
Okay, so for anyone doing any marketing and spending money on advertising, just really figuring out your numbers. Because I've talked to a lot of people, and people who don't know their numbers are typically the ones who are struggling the most, because they don't know, okay, I'm putting in all this money into Facebook ads, but I'm not getting a return. Well, have you calculated how much return you're getting? Are you tracking your numbers? Are you figuring out where your bottlenecks are? Knowing these numbers, knowing your proper KPIs. So those 5 I went over today. So click-through rate, cost per click, the landing page conversions, those things are so crucial, and knowing them is going to help you optimize your campaigns and just be successful moving forward with all this. So without them, you're just going to run around in circles hoping that things are working. If you know your numbers and you keep track of things, you're going to be able to improve them and just have overall better campaigns.
Awesome. Love it, man. Thank you very much. So where can people find more about you?
Yeah, so I mean, we do free strategy calls where we can get in and kind of help you organize your ad accounts. So you can go to www.untap-revenue.com and just book a strategy call where you'll just sit down with me and we'll kind of go through your ad account and make sure things are set up properly, because a lot of people don't have things foundationally there, which means they're not set up for success moving forward. So I want to make sure to do that for people. So you can check me out there.
Awesome, man. Thank you again. And you said you'll be sharing the swipe file, I think, in the comments here below.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the comments below so that people can take a look at that.
Right on. Well, Alec, thank you again so much for being on the show with us today. Always a pleasure having you on. You're a stud.
Thanks for having me.
And I want to thank all of you motivated gym owners out there for joining us today as well. If you are interested in getting access to our private Facebook group, type the word join in the comments below so we can get access. So you can get access right away. We do a weekly live Q&A session for gym business owners where you can literally ask any questions that you have. So if you're interested in participating in that and seeing the wealth of information and guides and everything that we have in there, it's as simple as typing join in the comments and you'll get free access right away. Also, if you'd like to watch the show live, you can join the conversation every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time right here on the Gymwright Facebook page. Thanks again for all your support. Now get out there and build something that matters. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.